Good morning. A very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Evelyn, your MC for today. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's first ever Discover webinar session. Discover is a key event of Science Centre Singapore which aims to raise awareness and celebrate the success of women and girls in science. We have a lineup of inspiring women who will be sharing on their passion for STEM in the various sessions throughout the day. The Discover webinar complements the various Discover programs that are held on-site at Science Centre, and we look forward to having you join us for all programs. Without further ado, we are pleased to invite the team of keynote women speakers to kickstart the session with Dr. Lakshmi Ramachandran as the moderator. Dr. Lakshmi, please take it away.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to all. I'm Dr. Lakshmi Ramachandran, your host and moderator today. I was a speaker at Discover last year, and I'm so excited and proud to be part of this wonderful event, second time in a row. This event, My STEM Journey, is brought to you by United Women Singapore in partnership with Keynote Women Speakers and Science Centre Singapore. Today, I'm representing Keynote Women Speakers, which is the world's leading directory of female public speakers. Keynote was founded in 2017 and is a non-profit organization run entirely by volunteers. Keynote's objective is to bring more diversity to stages around the world for a simple reason that diversity increases group intelligence. As of today, Keynote has chapters in Asia, US, EU, and Oceania. Keynote Directory has a diverse representation of women speakers who are subject matter experts in a variety of topics, ranging from business, diversity, equity and inclusion, innovation, future of work, health and wellness, leadership, STEM, retail, and more. Keynote also offers a member-based public speaking training program for those who want to increase their confidence in speaking. Now, let me introduce our accomplished speakers today. What I really like about today's panel of speakers is that we have a diverse representation from science, technology, and innovation. From science, we have Dr. Tara Huber, who has an inspiring career path as a Harvard-trained PhD turned coach for people in science. She has over 20 years of experience in scientific research and administration, including working with early career researchers. She is also a speaker, STEM mentor, and the founder of Huber Coaching, which provides one-to-one coaching and workshops on mentorship and career management. Now, fun fact about Tara. Yes, scientists can be fun people too. One of Tara's favorite things to do in Singapore is to explore Bukit Brown Cemetery, a heritage site rich with the stories of early Singapore history. She loves it because it combines her interest in people and nature. From tech, we have Kavya Kanjana, who keeps her passion for people, technology, and business alive daily in her role as Regional Partner Development Manager at Microsoft. Her years of active IT industry experience and engineering background and a keen understanding of emerging technology trends equip Kavya to effectively advise customers and partners and build good business relationships. Now, fun fact about Kavya. She loves to do jigsaw puzzles and is a big fan of superhero movies. And from innovation, we have none other than Natalie Turner, who is the inventor of the 6 Eyes of Innovation, a model that helps people measure their innovation strengths so that they can harness diversity and have a greater impact from new ideas. Natalie is an author, writer, and speaker in the field of innovation and leadership development. She is the founder and CEO of the NTO Network. As a catalyst for transformational change, Natalie enables individuals and organizations to create and bring to life innovations that will change themselves and the world for the better. Now, fun fact about Natalie, can you imagine she started her first business when she was 5 years old, and she's currently writing a novel. That makes me very curious. Before I call upon the speakers, let me share some house rules. In order to have a smooth flow and keep to the time, Please ensure that your microphone is muted at all times, and highly encourage you to all to share any questions you may have while hearing the talks via the Q&A, and we shall address them during the Q&A session towards the end. Now I invite Dr. Tara Huber to share her STEM journey through science. Tara.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for that introduction, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here to share with you my STEM journey. Now, as you heard, I am an executive coach to scientists and a STEM mentor, and I've had a research group as well as been an administrator at an A-STAR institute. But before I became a woman in science, I was a girl that liked field trips to national parks. I enjoyed going to the museums and learning about different cultures and how they evolve. I liked National Geographic articles on archaeology. I liked stamp collecting. I enjoyed working with my hands and liked to make crafts and do baking. So why do I mention all of that? Because I guess when you're young, you have a bunch of different interests and you're wondering what to do next. Well, there's some themes in there. And the themes for me was that I enjoyed working with interesting details, whether it was to do with tropical rainforests or ancient cultures. And I really enjoyed making connections between facts. I liked trying to understand cause and effect. And one theme you'll hear about throughout my talk is this idea of how do people or how does nature develop over time? So how did I end up in the sciences? Well, science has plenty of details and they were very interesting to me. I could be analytical through the sciences. I could understand how things were connected. And importantly, as I progressed through secondary school, it was clear that I was good at it. And so STEM was that platform where I could grow my abilities and, enjoy the interests that I was having. So my first point of advice, thinking about what to do in our lives, is to follow your curiosity. And so I followed my curiosity into my undergraduate training. I went to the United States in a small liberal arts college outside of Boston, and I majored in biological sciences. I was at a women's college. And that has a significant role that it played in my life. You can ask me more questions about that if you like. But in that setting, I was never expected not to succeed. I was amidst a lot of talented women, and we had male and female faculty that were invested in our success. I never felt that I was not supposed to be in my science classes. I felt like I belonged. My favorite class was developmental biology. I enjoyed understanding how that fertilized cell can go on to differentiate to become a fully functional adult. And so this is that exciting field that caught my attention. But I knew that that was my classes. What about the other part of science, which is research? And so after my third year in college, I went and did an internship to know what research was like. And I actually chose to do a program outside of my college. I applied to Harvard School of Public Health, and I spent my summer working there, and it was wonderful. I wanted to know what was it like doing research at a big institution. And as a consequence of that, I got to meet faculty, and one of them was the person that actually helped me do my senior thesis at my college. So that was also a bit unusual. I had a faculty advisor outside of my campus. And this I want to share is this idea of creating opportunities for yourself to maybe go outside some of the norm to answer the questions that you're curious about. I wanted to know what research was like. I wanted to see what it was like in a big institution. And it did have an impact moving forward because I was captivated by research and I decided to go on to pursue a PhD. I wanted to be more trained in it. And so I applied to and got into Harvard School's PhD program at the Harvard Medical School. I was attracted to that theme of developmental biology, what I mentioned to you earlier. and did my PhD work on blood development using frog embryos. So this is a model system to study biology processes. And what attracted me to my project was that it involved dissecting embryos. I could use my hands, the things I like to do. So that project engaged me. I love doing the dissections. And when I look back, it's a memorable time and I look fondly at it. But what it did teach me is in the throes of research, I encountered failure. And this is something that's a real part of a life in science. The experiment may go wrong. You might have an hypothesis that is not right. And so grasping failure, being able to navigate through it is a key part of a life in science. And we all had to learn how to navigate through that. Now, coming towards the end of my PhD, what was next? So when you get a PhD, one of the options, and often what was a typical option, was an academic career. But even at my time, we knew that that wasn't always a guarantee. There aren't all faculty positions for all of us. So what my advisor said, hey, continue on in your training and do the postdoctoral fellowship, continue to become well-trained so that then you are the most trained that you can be and make a decision going forward. So that's what I did. Now, while my PhD project involved what I was drawn to skill-wise, the dissections, and my interests in developmental biology, I was strategic in making the decision around my postdoc. I said, what is the hot science now? Where is science going? And I want to be a part of that. So for developmental biology, that field was stem cell biology. That is the amazing field of taking things that are less specified, cells that are less specified, and making them different kinds of lineages, a heart cell, a muscle cell. And with the hope that we could actually replace that, those disease cells in people by healthy cells that we can culture. So that was the promise. And I joined a lab of someone who is a pioneer in the embryonic stem cell field. It was a wonderful time of training. I actually got to use my dissection skills still in that lab, dissecting using mouse embryos. And so through that time was able to publish well and continue my love for research. So what's next? A faculty job. And that's kind of how I ended up moving forward. I didn't really think of anything else. And so the choice of choosing stem cells as my field was useful because the very next job then was related to the fact that there was an investment in stem cell research here in Singapore. I joined as a senior research scientist at the Genome Institute of Singapore. There were a number of faculty there that were doing stem cell research, and it was with great excitement that I joined as a faculty member. Now, I had a research group of graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, technicians, and we did work trying to understand how the cell that's in our bone marrow, the hematopoietic stem cell, how that is set up during development. But after 6 years, I made a change and a switch in my STEM journey. It takes a turn off the academic path. After those years, I decided to do something that not many faculty members do. And that was to come out of the bench and enter into the administration and now into coaching. Now you may ask, why? Why after all that training did I do that? Now it's important along any career to make constant checks and to see whether it is still a fit for you. What got me to my faculty job is different from what was going to help me succeed as a faculty member. So I found that I was now away from doing the experiments and handling the details myself, and I missed that. That's what my staff was doing. And so I made the hard decision to then move off of that faculty job and apply myself to administration at the institute that I was at. I pivoted and I took everything that I'd learned and all my experience as a faculty member and applied it to that role. So I don't consider it a waste. I consider it having been able to now help using all that I know. So I helped with training graduate students and overseeing the graduate students and postdoctoral fellows, assembling mentorship programs, being involved in some of the operations of the Institute, space management and equipment, all in the hopes of helping my fellow scientists to do well and to develop in their careers. And as I handled a number of things, it became very obvious that I really cared about going into the details of people's career development. And that's why I became a coach. So now, at this time in my life, I get to still ask those questions, connect dots, watch people develop, and help them as they contribute to science, as they move the knowledge forward. And so in reflecting on my career, even as I prepared for this talk, I just draw out these things to submit to you that follow your curiosity. It's important in science to always follow what interests you. Create opportunities for yourself to answer questions and to actually open the next doors. Failure is a part of a STEM journey, and it's going to be important knowing how to handle failure. Be strategic, picking the things that that people are interested in and that you yourself are interested in developing in. And then to make those reality checks along the way to make sure you're still contributing and still in a way enjoying the work that you do. I certainly do. I feel that all that I have trained to become is put to bear here by being a coach. And I will, in my heart, always be a scientist. It has always trained me to think a certain way, and I bring that into my job even to this day. And so with that, that is my STEM journey. And I'm happy to hand over the stage to Kavya.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lakshmi, for the kind introduction, and Tara for sharing your journey with science. Really inspiring indeed. And a special good morning to all of our young listeners. I am excited to be addressing our STEM superstars of tomorrow. Let me start by asking all of us to think about these three scenarios. Imagine you're taking your bike out for a ride or going for a walk. How many of us actually pause to think about the road underneath? What is that road made of? Do we? Never. Now imagine this. You are switching on an aircon in your house or a light bulb. How many of us actually think about the electricity or the power that got transmitted to our house and how was it done? Never, right? We just expect these things to work. And now think of this third scenario. What is that one thing today in Singapore that you can leave your home without and have a normal day running all your errands? Is that your wallet or your smartphone? I actually tried this experiment, right? I left my wallet at home and I had my smartphone. I was able to get into the bus, MRT, pay for my coffee, do a pela for one of my friends for lunch, make my calls, attend my meetings, pay my bills, then book a Grab taxi and come back home, never missing my wallet even for a moment. But let me pause and ask, what do these three examples have in common? It is technology. These examples actually tell us the basic purpose and potential of tech. See, the purpose is very simple. Any product, any device, any solution, software, hardware that is built using basic science and scientific principles, but that applies it to make our lives easier, simpler, and better. That is all tech. And the potential of tech, now this is where it gets really interesting, right? Tech, especially the ones of this century, have the potential to remarkably change the way we live. It has the potential to better even other fields of work, like really non-scientific fields of work like music and art, or to improve extremely scientific fields of research like the one that Tara was just mentioning about stem cell research, genomic research, or even vaccination research, right? And today, if you think about it, even every business is a technology business. And it is with the help of tech that we are going to solve some of the biggest problems facing humanity today. Think climate change, think poverty, think Mars exploration, right? Tech is helping everywhere. Now, for a moment, imagine if the potential is so great and if the problems are so huge, isn't it logical that we need all hands on deck to solve this? We need the most diverse and most creative of ideas. More than ever, today we need girls, women, and all other less represented groups designing these solutions for the future. And let me tell you one thing, gender lines as we knew it in the past are really thinning. We are heading to a future that's going to be digital and virtual and augmented. If we had any physical limitations or any other limitations that was holding us back as girls and women, I think that will not matter anymore in future. And on that note, I want to switch gears and share with you a little bit about my own journey with tech. See, I grew up in this small town in southern part of India during the 1980s. So imagine pre-mobile, pre-internet time for us. Cable television was still an in thing, right? And everybody was still going to public libraries to read. I grew up around a lot of societal norms and do's and don'ts and customs and rituals. And I was not often getting answers to my curiosity about the world or the questions that I had in that small community. So I was automatically drawn to science, and especially physics was really interesting to me. So that brought me to science and my interest there. But as I grew up, I also realized that maybe I don't want to study pure scientific research because I didn't think it was my cup of tea. I maybe lacked that level of inquiry, right? But I still had a deep interest in understanding how science was used in various things around us in our life. So the application really excited me. So I decided to go into engineering, right? I graduated as an electrical and electronics engineer with an elective in computer programming and software engineering. So that took me 4 years to study, and I thoroughly enjoyed that journey. And these 4 years were really helpful for me to develop many skills that I hold dear even today. Skills like observation, right? Analytical thinking, reasoning, logical reasoning, and problem solving. These are valuable skills for life that you pick up during those years. Now, after my 4 years of engineering studies, I knew I wanted to work in IT, information technology, because that was the most happening area, right? But I also knew I was not the best coder or the best programmer or the best product designer that one would find. But I had some other skills. I was really good at communication, articulation, right? And I was really good at influence skills. And I had a strong interest in understanding how tech worked. So I decided to move into the business side of technology. So I decided I'm going to go and sell tech and help in adoption of tech. So I joined a large IT company in Bangalore in India, and I started as a sales trainee there. My first job was actually quite intimidating as a young graduate. I was supposed to understand the inner workings of a complex computer of the type that I used in research. And I was supposed to go and sell this to some of India's like premier research institutes. And I had to talk to scientists, right? You can imagine I was terrified, but I kept at it. I stayed at it, and I did make that first sale. And I stayed on, and it's been 16 years hence. And today I work at Microsoft, where I believe I have a front row seat to watch cutting edge technology as it is being developed. Now, why did I share these experiences with you? Because I want to leave you with 3 thoughts, if I may. First, it is quite possible in your journey that you will change directions. Your interests and your passions will take turns, but that's okay. That's absolutely okay. And what's really lovely is embracing that journey. And technology as a field is quite vast and it's growing fast. So you will find a landing in tech if you want to. Second point is, if you're looking at a career in tech, please look both deep and wide. What do I mean by that? We need our depth experts like the programmers, the coders, the data scientists, the product developers. These are skills for the future. And if you are passionate about this, just go for it, right? But if you are a person, maybe like me, right, who has various interests and who likes to connect the dots and who likes to bring people and business together so that you can accelerate the adoption of tech all around you, that's an equally valuable skill. I count myself in this category and I really enjoy this space. So that's what I mean. Look at both depth and breadth when you are looking at a career in STEM. And finally, I want to attempt to break some fears and myths that you may have around studying science and tech. And I think Tara alluded to it earlier. So let us try to distill these skills, right? What do we need? So, number one, are you a curious person? Do you always look for the why in things? Are you a problem solver? Are you someone who is always looking for answers where they don't exist today? And are you someone who likes application, right? Like are you really fascinated by things that make our lives cooler and more awesome with science? If yes, if you answered yes in your mind, I think you will love tech. So curiosity, problem solving, and application, applied science, right? I think that is technology. 2 million years ago, maybe that cutting edge tech was a small sharp stone tool. 200 years ago, maybe the most amazing technology was photography. Last 100 years has taken us through radio and television to airplanes and space travels, and today we are here in AI. And tomorrow and the next 100 years, we'll see technology surpass our wildest science fiction. And all of you right here have the potential to define it, design it, and live it. Thank you so much. And with that, I would like to hand over to Natalie Turner, who will share with us the power of innovation. Sorry. Thank you.
Wow, what great journeys we've heard here already. So, it's interesting when I was thinking about how to share my perspective of my own journey. I think that in all of us, no matter our age, even if when we're very young as well, we have these elements of curiosity and these elements, what I call the red thread of our life that runs through our choices. Whatever career, whatever types of decisions we decide to do. And it's only actually in retrospect when we start to look back at ourselves that we think, wow, that is the red thread. That's the sort of the golden line of consciousness that's gone through my life of who I am and the skills that I have and how I have showed up in the world. So I just want to share with you a couple of those threads of my life. And as I'm doing that, I'd like you to be thinking about your own. Sometimes they can get hidden a little bit, they need a little tug, and then they can unravel, and then we actually start to move into who we are. So I left, after doing my A-levels, I'm from the UK, after I left my A-levels, I actually got accepted to study to be a midwife. And it's funny, I'd forgotten this until I was thinking about my career. I'd forgotten that I actually was going to be a midwife. And I decided that I'd take a gap year, like a lot of young students do, for a year before going to nursing college. And so I took this year, and 1 year turned into 2, which turned into 3, which turned into 4, which turned into 5 years. So I had a long gap year. But within that gap year, I traveled. I traveled all across the world. I worked in Bogota with street children. I worked in Manila. I worked in different places in non-governmental roles. So in the whole field of research and development in terms of bringing in sort of relief to different sort of zones of poverty and of change. And it was during this period that I got really interested actually in politics, so more in the social sciences. And I went back to England and I did a degree in politics, and I worked for a year as a speechwriter for the Labour Party. But all of the time at the back of my mind was this red thread plugging away, pulling at me. And, you know, the whole area of economics and social change. And so I did my master's degree at the London School of Economics in development economics and social psychology. And it was right at that time, so we're talking sort of mid-90s, early 90s here, when there was a whole explosion of what we then called new media and new technologies. And I had an amazing professor that inspired me in this space. And so when I left my master's degree, I got a job, my sort of first sort of corporate-y type job, if you like, working as a researcher in the field of how new technologies are shaping markets for learning. And now back then, what we were really looking at was things like CD-ROMs, satellite television, intranets. They were all just starting to emerge in the world. And it was an exciting space to be in. And after I'd worked for a while there, I moved into British Telecom. Now, when I moved there, I worked in a department called Charge Card. Now, for those of you who are old enough to remember payphones and charge cards, my job was actually to be a scout, to be someone that was looking out over the horizon to see what is emerging, what is coming forth right now, what is shaping the world of technology, particularly in the field of mobile tech. Obviously, I was in a telco. Now, I realized after being in this job just a few months that even though I was in a department that was exploding around payphones and charge cards, I thought this is not the future. And I went on the intranet and I thought, actually, I need to find something else. I need to find where is the future? Where's it going? So I found this role in an obscure department then called Internet and Multimedia Services in BT, and I applied for a job and then I went there, and that was obviously became the future of telco. Now, what's interesting there, going back to the red thread, there was something in me, and it's interesting that you know, both Tara and Kavai have talked about this element of curiosity. You know, that is really what pulls us, I think, in this whole field of being out there, of stepping out on the edge, of seeing and wondering what might be coming next. Now, another corporate role that I had before I set up my own business back in 2006 was I became an innovation director in a large commercial research firm. So what we were responsible there for was design thinking for new concepts and new propositions for big brands. So I was a design facilitator. We would run these great events with workshops and, you know, with creative customers and consumers coming in to help clients generate new product ideas. And again, it was an explosion of the new. It was always around thinking, you know, how do we create new ideas, new products, new services? So very, very exciting. But I realized then that, you know, you can come up with all these fantastic ideas, and a lot of them can go back into an organization and never come out. You know, it's like all of the testing and the research, but it never comes out to have any impact in the world. So that got me back into that space of really thinking about social psychology and the psychology of people. What is it that stops ideas materializing? What is it that really inhibits us from change, inhibits us from stepping out and being courageous when it comes to our new ideas? So I left and I set up my own business back in London in 2006. And I actually moved to Asia in 2010. And what I really wanted to focus on was not just what we innovate, whether it is a new product, a new service, a new outcome, but how we innovate and also why we innovate. What is it that really is behind that quest, if you like? And that is really the field that I've been working in for the last several years now. So how is this my own sort of STEM journey, if you like, although I don't come from obviously the traditional science background, it's more from social science, but how has this really empowered me and what do I love about it and why would I encourage you to be in this space? I think what's empowered me is when I look at all these different elements and these different threads of my life, there has been a coalescing, a coming together, the love of research, the love of data and understanding trends and being able to extrapolate meaning out of that to create things. That desire to be out on the edge of what might be emerging, to be able to see what's coming over the horizon. And bringing those all together has inspired my work now. All of that, all those experiences have come together to give me my message, to help me as a researcher and an inventor of designing models and systems to help people to innovate. And in terms of the book that I've written as well, it's all around how to actually transmit the joy, the passion, the excitement, the energy of innovation in the world. So my advice to you is, you know, every space around this area in STEM, every space around innovation requires courage. It requires courage and it requires confidence. So what I would say is get as much experience as you can, try things out, you know, get on, you know, work on different ideas, whether it's at university or in your local community, get out there and actually exercise these skills of entrepreneurship and exercise your curiosity on real things and have the courage to step into that space. To step into that space of yourself, of where you can touch into your own confidence, because the world really needs you right now. We have so many things, so many problems and so many challenges. And what I would say, even more so, so many opportunities open to us. So have a look at yourself, you know, think back even over your life to where it is now and look those pockets of excitement, those pockets of energy that are in you, because that is where your red thread is. Like Lakshmi said, I was 5 when I started my first business. I've always been wanting to pioneer, right from being a little girl. And I've always wanted to be leading things and shaping things. So you know your character, listen to it. Listen to that voice inside of you and think, how can I bring that out? What is the area that is best for me to move into? So go for it, I would say, and enjoy the journey. So Lakshmi, back to you.
Wow. I was just sitting back, listening to all of your talks and so inspired. And each of you had a very unique perspective to share from your unique STEM journey. One thing that I observed is, you know, some common threads, right? So it, as you said, Natalie, there is that curiosity element. And then I saw there is this passion and interest. You know, Tara's interest in science and biology is different from Kavya's interest in engineering and IT. And then I saw that, you know, there is this perseverance, you know, like that I saw, you just followed, you just went ahead and did, pursued what you really wanted and you persevered towards it. And last but not the least, what I also saw was there was some kind of an element of purpose in all of you, right? So in this session, I was so looking forward to actually, you know, talking to all of you. And so let me just ask Tara this question. So one thing that I observed and what struck me, Tara, about your story is that you are so self-aware at each phase of your life. And you made strategic plans and brave decision to pursue what you felt is the right way forward for you. Now, from your experience as a coach, your present experience as a coach, could you share more on this self-awareness and how that helps in each phase of life to make decisions, you know, with taking your STEM journey as an example?
Yeah. You pointed something really important, which is that I think, you know, we need to be clear about ourselves, what we want, what we're good at, what is interesting. And when we're in a career, we also see changes along the way. So it is possible that things may not match. So we're all
Right.
trying to make sure we're fit for the environment we're in, where we're working. So I think self-awareness is a key part of life. It's also part of relationships, frankly, right? So because we want to be our best selves. And what does that entail? It's a realistic look at who we are, what our values are, what our strengths are, what are maybe some of the weaknesses, and because of weaknesses, then in the environment we're in, is that weakness a particular problem? Maybe in the stage, at one stage it's not, but as you carry on in your career, that could be. And then the question is, do you want to fix it? Do you want to work on it? Or maybe you don't want to. So there's that reality check, right? So I think when I coach people, we talk a lot about, who are you and what matters to you and where you are as a professional, and sort of where you want to go, what's going to be a challenge, what's not. It's being realistic and then making choices with that. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's so true, Tara. Actually, when I look back at my own career journey, it's something like that. I too have pivoted in many different directions, and then I can see that it's a lot about the self-awareness in relation to the circumstance or phase of life that you're in, but it's ultimately driven by that passion that you feel at that time. And as Natalie said, the confidence to in pursuing what you really want, and not to be afraid of any of these STEM subjects.
Yeah.
So the next question I want to ask you, because the moment I heard you got your PhD from Harvard, I was like, wow. Because having done my PhD from the US, not so easy to get into such a top. So could you please share a little more on the strategies that you had at that time? Because we are speaking to young girls in the audience who may be like interested in pursuing their higher studies. So could you share a little bit on how you laid out strategies to get into Harvard?
Well, I was very highly motivated as a young girl. I did want to do well. So I felt like, make all of your choices the top choices you can. And of course, that's related to actually getting into these schools in the first place. So I did go to a very good undergraduate college, Wellesley College in Boston. The proximity, and so not everyone, I understand not everyone can do this, but the proximity to actually Boston itself and being able to then go to do that internship and being aware of it was just sort of part of that stepping stone. So I had a strategy, yes. That internship was getting me closer to where I wanted to go, to see what it was like to be there, make connections. And indeed, the person I worked with who did my senior thesis, he wrote me a reference. Now, I know that's not everyone's possibility, but I think there's always that message of being as excellent as you can be where you are, be noticeable. So I think part of my strategy was being noticeable by being in their space and people being aware of me. But if that's not the strategy, then how can I be noticeable in maybe, the research projects you do as an undergraduate, some of your projects that you have initiated, and just highlighting them obviously in your applications, understanding, hey, this is why I fit for you. Like, this is why I'm a good fit for coming to whatever Harvard program it is. And of course, there are lots of excellent universities that one would get a wonderful PhD from. It is a stepping stone, and many universities will also be a good stepping stone to other great places. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. That's a very, very valid point. I did my PhD from State University of New York at Buffalo, and it was a really nice experience over there as well. But the point you talked about, like highlighting yourself and making yourself known, all that is like very, very important. And I also like the fact that when you apply to universities, you're like really literally in your statement of purpose telling them how you are a good fit. So it involves a lot of research at the back end in studying a lot about these universities too, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tara. Now, Kavya, that was such an informative talk, and you made tech sound so exciting. And come to think of it, through the examples that you gave, tech actually intersects every aspect of our life. Whether you are in tech or not, it intersects every aspect of our life. So, and you shared quite a bit on the future relevance of tech, the emerging technologies and all that. So in this era of fast-paced technology and advancement where things seem to be changing by the minute, what would be your advice for our young students here while choosing their subjects to remain future relevant?
Right. Oh, okay. Very important question. Yes, see, as I said in the talk, the technology that is relevant for the times may keep changing, right? So if you are looking at this current century that we are in, I think the maximum amount of innovation is happening in the fields around data science, right? Because every business, every industry, every walk of life, we are always collecting a lot of data around it. And how do we leverage that data to gain insights, and whether it is for making our lives better or for the businesses, that's the area where a lot of research is happening, and it's a combination of mathematics and computer science. So that's an area that is up and coming and really relevant right now. Other than that, I would say anything around machine learning, which is also an extension of data science, AI and research in that space is also quite potential. The other area would be around application development itself, that's going through a change phase where we are looking at low code and no code application development, because in the past you had to be really strong in coding and app development to become a programmer. But now we are going to enter a space where everybody can be a programmer, right? So these are some of the thoughts that come to my mind in relevant areas for studying. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think this information would be very useful for the audience here to make informed decisions, when they pursue their career. Now, the next question I have is, slightly different kind of a question, because see, when it comes to girls and women's participation in STEM as compared to science, where, me and Tara are from, which is comparable proportion of both males and females in the early part. So we see a drop, like, after PhD, and, it coincides mostly with women establishing their families. But when it comes to tech and engineering, it is different. So back in 2017, I had attended this UNESCO International Symposium for girls' education in STEM. And at that time, I was actually quite shocked to learn that only 3% of female students globally in higher education choose information and communication technology studies. So similarly, very, like lesser proportion of girls in engineering and mathematics. So what is your observation? Because as you yourself said, like tech actually needs more girls and women to be there. But what's your observation, and what would be your advice for girls who are keen on pursuing a tech career?
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say yes, there are significantly lesser number of girls and women in this case, but it is on an upward positive trend, right? And I think I mentioned somewhere in the talk earlier, if in the past we thought we had some physical limitations of, doing heavy civil or mechanical engineering type of studies, which was predominantly seen as a boys space or a male space. I think in today's technology spaces, I think some of these are becoming less and less relevant. So it's a matter of sort of rethinking our own mindsets of what we can do, right? And if you find that you have that passion and skill set, just go for it. I don't think it needs any unique skill set that's only found in boys, even math for that matter, right? Yes, it could be easy for someone, difficult for someone, but it's not a factor of gender, that it is difficult for me because I am a girl or a woman. That's not the factor. It could be easy for me, it could be difficult for you. But if it's difficult, but if you are still interested in it, just apply more time, just find ways to make it interesting, and you will get there. I don't think math sees gender. So that's it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that very like valuable advice, and something to really keep in mind. Because it's all about your interest ultimately. And then if you're really interested, Of course, nothing is like a smooth road. You have to put in effort, you learn, and then you grow. That's it. So we just have to embrace that, right?
Absolutely.
So my next question is towards Natalie. Natalie, I'm a big fan of your 6 Eyes of Innovation. I've heard you speak, and you have got this like best-selling book on the same thing. And so in your book, you broaden out the concept of innovation quite a bit, 6 strategies. And why do you think that it is important for women in considering a career in STEM?
Well, yeah, I think going back to why I did that was what I observed a lot in the world of business was that our perception of those that are innovative is often seen as those that are creative, and also those that, those sorts of industries like technology and science and research and development, they are seen to be innovative and everybody else isn't in a way, So what I wanted to do was to say, absolutely, those industries are innovative in the sense that they're forwarding and changing and trailblazing new things into the world. But it all starts with ideas, and then those ideas have to become real. They have to have impact. So it has to go beyond research into the development, and then the development and the commercialization or the impact of those ideas. So when I was looking at it from a people perspective, I realized we've got all these different types of perceptions, mindsets, skill sets that are required to make our ideas work. We need that element of curiosity and the identification of opportunity. We need people that are good at that. We need people who are creative and who can ignite new ideas. But we also need high investigators, people that are really, really good at research, and they're good at taking things apart and have a more critical mindset. But beyond that, we need investors. People who have courage. We need implementers, people that can be committed and resilient and drive an idea into the world. And we also need improvers, clever thinkers, people that can look at things. So I think when looking at STEM, we need all of that. It's not just, one little part of it. It's like the whole industry needs to harness this raft of skills and rafts of ways of thinking so that we have greater impact with what we do.
Is it possible that, I may be good at one of this, is it possible for me to develop the rest of the skills that you mentioned, by consciously being aware of it and, working towards it?
One of the things that I was very conscious of when I developed the instrument and researched it and validated it, with people in organizations, was I didn't want to create a psychometric tool. I didn't want to create a personality instrument. I wanted to create a perception of confidence, because I think confidence is so important in the perception of our ability to do something. So to make it skills-based. So I do believe that we can get better at the different skills that we measure on the 6 Eyes. However, I also say, and it's the philosophy, is play to your skills and to your strengths, but not at the expense of what an idea needs to make it move to where it needs to go next to become real. Because I'm an igniter, for example. I'm a creative. I can come up with loads of ideas, hundreds and hundreds before breakfast, But if I don't then investigate those ideas and then get some traction behind it, it doesn't really matter that I've been a great igniter. I can't just sort of say, oh, well, I'm a great igniter, but I'm not an investigator or an implementer. So it's about knowing who we are and playing to our strengths and partnering with those other types of people that have their strengths, but also, what strengths do we want to work on, or what skills, other skills or experience do we want to have to build new capabilities in ourselves?
Yeah, it's an amazing sharing, because when you gave that example of being an implementer, also in addition to being creative, it's so important, because you see so many people, and even sometimes I myself see myself as having all these ideas, but hey, when do you take the action? Why don't you take the action on it?
Yeah.
So the other question I have for you is, because you have, you have also spoken about purpose in your talk, and I've also heard you give an entire talk on this purpose for speakers also. So what do you think this is needed today, and what do you mean by purpose-led innovation?
Yeah, I think purpose is that sort of word that has a lot of depth to it, just like the word innovation, really. How I define it is on a number of different levels. I think, at the sort of the starting level, we have personal purpose. Yeah, so that which drives us and our why. And that's becoming more important, I think, particularly to younger people that are going into the workplace now. We want to have meaning. I mean, we all want meaning in our lives, but even more now, we want to feel that what we're doing has significance, it has impact. So that's sort of personal purpose. And then we have team or sort of, project purpose. So why are we gathering together to do something? What is our purpose, our collective purpose? What is it we're trying to do and why? And then we can have an organizational purpose, which is, bigger institutions that form. And why are they doing it? What is their service? What is their why? What is their reason for being? And then I talk about sort of more big purpose. What is the bigger impact of what we're doing at an individual, team, and collective level on the things like planet, our performance, and also people. And I think now more than ever, going back to that line of consciousness and that red thread, we need to have that strong line of consciousness through all of those. So I am in line with my team or my project, which is I'm in line with my organization, and I'm in line with the bigger impact of my work. So this is why I think purpose is so significant right now, and particularly because we don't innovate in a vacuum. We don't just create stuff and there's no thought or meaning of how that then is then implemented or taken out into the world. So we need people, good people, that are thoughtful, that are thinking, that are grappling with complex values, complex dilemmas about how to use different things that are being invented right now. And so I'm very passionate about this people aspect of thought, of how we apply our own thinking to what we are inventing and what we're creating, so that the innovations we see have that bigger impact.
Yes, wonderful. So now, before we start the Q&A session, I think we have roughly about 3 minutes. So I'll just put one question, which if you wish to, all three of you can answer. So one piece of advice you will give to young students here who is just getting started in STEM fields. So yeah, please feel free to just come and share.
Yeah.
Tara, you want to go first?
I think it's a broad and interesting question. I think, well, when we go into the STEM field, because there are so many subjects, the first thing is really to take a number of them in the first place. And I think we get exposed to whether it's chemistry, physics, maths, etc. I think it's to just keep looking at what you find interesting and keep reflecting on what it is exactly in that subject that interests you, with the idea of also looking out further, is to say, oh, well, so then what could this also lead to? And you might need teachers to help you with that. But I like the approach of a little bit more of an open look at science in the beginning. I personally regretted not having a bit more physics, because my maths was good, and I believe I certainly could have handled the physics. I wish I had hung on a little longer, but I think that's, again, just because when we do, we learn. We learn what we like. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, wonderful. Kavya?
Yeah, from my end, I would say try your hands at as many things as possible, right? See, at the surface level, the connections may not be visible in the beginning. You may think that, okay, why am I studying something that has no relation to something else, some other direction that I want to go? But, me being a generalist, where I draw my strength is by finding those connections, right? So for me, that's important, rather than just limiting your experiences to one direction or one area. if you have a varied amount of interest, just go after them, and all those experiences are going to tie back into that field of work, which that path that you will choose. So find those connections. I think that's my suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kavya. Natalie?
Yeah, I think I build on both of those, because it is like, you know, you need to follow what excites you, particularly in the field of innovation, because it's hard work. It really is hard work. You're pioneering, you're out on the edge. You need a lot of courage and commitment to just keep on going. You need that resilience. And I think that having that aspect of lateral thinking is so important. That's why we need diversity. That's why we need different inputs into our brain. So read extensively, read different things, expose yourself to different ideas, you know, debate ideas, take opposites, you know, really help yourself to think very broadly and laterally, because that is when you spark, that's when you get ideas out of that sort of field of new inputs that you've got into your mind.
Yeah, it's so true, because you know, and what I've realized over time myself is that, you know, when there is that passion, and then when there's that purpose-led, you know, journey that you're taking, then I think the work, I mean, you know, I can see myself working hard, but it doesn't seem like hard work. You know, it just drives you. It's so exciting and fulfilling, right? When you get into that path. So yeah, it's so important to really know what really you know, creates that spark within you as well. So now I think we are good to move to the Q&A session. So here, what I'll be doing is, we have questions from our young audience. In fact, we have quite a number of questions. So I hope we get the chance to cover all of it in the next 15 minutes. Some of that may already have been covered. So let me just go through the questions and ask you something that we haven't discussed. So this is to, again, all the speakers. Have you at any point in time regretted any decisions in your career? So, Kavya, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think mine is a little more like what Tara mentioned. I wish I had stayed with pure physics a little more. Regret, no, not so much, but maybe getting into deeper science, even as the side passion. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, so it's more of a wish to do more rather than a regret.
Yeah,
that I hear from you. What about you, Tara?
Yeah, so I do regret not engaging in more feedback along the way. And so I think when you go in, I felt like, oh, I can figure this out. My teachers will train me and I will figure this out by myself. And I think this reality check piece, it also involves not just me registering how I'm doing, but actually how people are observing, and maybe engaging them to ask me, to give me the real feedback along the way. Actually seeking out more of the advice when I was struggling, and really asking for help and perspective. So I think one of the things I didn't get to say was just, I think a life in science is not a lonely life. It's not just doing this all on your own. And we've heard about teamwork, that's definitely critical, but the actual you know, the feedback that we get from our colleagues professionally and on the scientific stuff is so critical to everyone doing as well as they can. So if anything, I just wish I had gotten more feedback, and maybe also even addressed any feedback I did have sooner than later. Yeah.
Tara, you know how I wished I had this advice. I'd heard this advice when I was young, you know, because especially in the science field, asking, all the people used to encourage asking questions. There was this fear, will I sound silly by asking this question? So it's so important to actually overcome such thoughts and just go ahead and boldly ask. And at the same time, as you said, asking for help, you know, if you don't understand something, you know, ask a peer or ask your teacher. So this is like so important to really move forward, you know, with confidence and clarity. Yeah. What about you, Natalie?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question in itself, isn't it? Regret.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I'm an optimist, so I tend to be someone that puts a silver lining on life. You know, I can look back at things and think, God, I wish that may have gone differently. But I will always look for well, what did I take out of it? Or what did I learn from that experience? And it doesn't mean to say that you don't have incredibly painful experiences in your career and things go wrong. You know, I've been made redundant 3 times. I've been in failed businesses. I've lost a lot of money along the way. You know, I mean, there's loads of things that can go wrong, particularly if you choose an entrepreneurial life. But do I regret those things? Well, not really, because that's made me, and it's made me more resilient. And I think that what I would say is, you know, it goes back to the courage again, and to look at life as a great learning journey, that you will just, you know, take so much from, even those things which are deemed maybe negative.
Yeah, and thank you so much, because even for me, my career has changed in so many ways too. And then when I look back at the decisions that I made, each decision was made, again, as Tara said, with a lot of self-awareness. And, you know, I owned my decisions. So I didn't ask my parents to make that decision for me, or, you know, so I feel that plays a very important role, because when you own your decision, then you don't really have much of an option to regret your career choices. Okay, so okay, the next question is from Anika. Thank you to all the speakers for sharing your inspiring stories. For all panelists, did you ever feel that being a woman hindered your pursuit of your STEM career? So Tara?
Yeah, so I would say I didn't feel any hindrance all the way up. I would say all the way up into becoming a faculty member. And maybe that 6 years wasn't long enough to feel a lot of what I know is happening in around in terms of promotion or things and, you know, grants and how your papers are accepted. But I did start to feel that now there was a difference when I became a faculty member. Something simple as being mistaken as a postdoc. So just by view, I wasn't seen as a faculty member. So I made sure I dressed like I looked like one, which meant a lot of pants for some reason. So I think it is a reality that we still live in this world that does view men and women differently. I don't think that's going to be like forever, just as like Javier is saying, we really are making headway with that. But I would say that I think it's perception that I was impacted by the most for me in that window that I was. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kavya?
I think for me, early on, what's important for everyone is to have a supporting family, right? So fortunately, I had parents who were quite supportive of my areas of study. So when thoughts came about, when there were discussions about studying physics or engineering, it was never like a second thought for them. So that's important. So I sort of didn't have that hurdle. Some people do have that hurdle. But I did have problems when I started working in a corporate tech corporate business environment, and yeah, where the combination of tech plus business, a woman doing it, was seen as too ambitious, or as seen as not so oriented to having a family life, right? So there were situations like that. But I think if you really are sure about yourself, and if you know you're good at what you're doing, I think those comments will fall off the sides, and it will not matter.
Yeah, wonderful. Natalie?
No, I can't say I have. I think I was fortunate to have a very strong mother and a very strong grandmother. So I came from a lineage of women that had a huge sense of confidence in themselves. And, you know, also my father was very, you can do anything, go for it. You know, you can whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. So I sort of came from that belief set. So that has really helped me, I think, along the way in both my corporate jobs that I've had and also as an entrepreneur and as a business builder. it hasn't held me back at all. That's not to say that it hasn't and doesn't hold other people back, but it hasn't been my personal story. I think that, yeah, it's not something that has really affected me.
Yeah, so what I gathered from all of you is that it's about the, attitude or your perception towards it. Like, even if it exists in the society, it's about how you look at it and how you will, move forward despite whatever the situation may be around. So I see the drive and all passion and everything that has, fueled you all forward. The next question is, I think this should be to Kavya. I'm really interested in design thinking and innovation, or maybe both Natalie and Kavya. I'm in my 40s and an IT consultant, but would like to pursue in this area. What path would you advise me to take?
Right. I think Natalie can definitely add more to that. But see, if you look at design thinking itself, right, it's more about the higher level conceptualizing of ideas. So if you are looking at a career switch at this stage, I think you mentioned IT consultant, so you may have some background already in it. But I would say just study, read, and get to know where you want to go with that, right? And while these are really like buzzwords out there, I think what we really need is people who can bring it alive in a real executable format, right? There are a lot of organizations around the world who are in that phase of transformation because the digital era has just come in boom, right? So there are a lot of new ways of thinking and faster ways of pivoting that are needed. So design thinking is part of that way to help do those conversations or go those paths, right? But what we need is somebody who will take that abstract idea and bring it at an executable level for organizations. So if you can learn, study in that space and be an advisor or a consultant for large organizations, I think that's a good career path. But Natalie, you will have something to add here, I'm sure.
Yeah, just building on what you're saying. I think there are some fantastic programs that you can learn and deepen your knowledge on. I think it's also dependent on whether you want to be in a design thinking type role within an organization, as in, that you're in a department or an area that is very much focused on, new product development or new services creation, or whether you want to work as a consultant or for a firm that actually specializes in that, and then they actually work with other organizations. So I think there are different types of career paths that you can take. But like Kavya said, I think a lot of this is mindset. It's very much about really developing your ability to think like a designer, and to really think from the human-centered proposition. What are the challenges that you're trying to solve? What are the needs of people? What are the opportunities that are emerging? And really spending some time really deepening your observational skill set, because that will help you whatever path you choose in terms of helping others. And I think if you want to learn to work with other people in groups, then facilitation skills are essential. You have to learn how to facilitate groups. And nowadays, you need to learn how to do that in an online environment, not just in a room. And that is really a new capability that we need to develop in people.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much. So let's move on to another question from Shweta. This is to Tara. Hi, Tara. Thanks for an insightful talk. I would imagine that your decision to pivot would have been a gradual process. What skills and knowledge did you work on building up during this time before the actual switch?
Right. So I think we have talked about self-awareness, and I think that comes under the umbrella of actually learning. So if there's a skill that we should really get good at is learning. How do I get information, process it, and make sense of it? And so you're actually learning about yourself, what you like, what don't you like. And actually that self-reflective process is helpful just for career as well as, whether you executed that project well, because now what you're doing is you're learning about yourself. Then the discipline of actually applying it to yourself. So you don't just park that information somewhere, but what am I going to do about it? How am I either going to fix it or address it? So I think the ability to learn, self-reflect are key, I would say, key skills. And then on the flip side of learning about yourself is then learning about the your current role as well as where you want to go to. What does it make? How to say? What makes you successful in that other role? What's it going to take to be successful? So it's studying the other side of the coin, and so then you use the most intelligence to kind of make choices. I mean, for me, when I knew that I was interested in talent development and just how people developed, I did narrow down to, hey, what are some options I could consider? I did actually think, oh, do I want to go into HR? Do I want to become a counselor? Do I want to become a coach? I kind of had 3 things in my view. There probably could have been a few others. But I went ahead and I talked to people. I investigated these things out. What would it be entailed to get into those roles? Would I like it? What does it involve? And that's helped me narrow into coaching. And I'm still learning along the way. Actually, maybe some of that counseling stuff is stuff I want to get into, because as you work with clients, you also understand that some things are also emotional. So I think it's always that reflective process, but you've got to get the data to make good choices. And I think those were really the key skills for me.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing, Tara, because it's so true, again, the self-reflective process. And thanks for sharing your very recent most experience, because we keep having these questions, right? It's a non-stop, never-ending journey, and that is how you grow. So the last question to all of you is, what do you advise girls who don't know what they want to be or have not decided their academic pathway? So I'll let Tara speak on this first, because I think it's like a little bit of continuation of from what you shared last.
Yeah. So actually, I can empathize with the idea of not being so clear at a certain stage. So maybe the thing is to think about skill sets, and maybe what kind of skills interest you or might be something you want to learn. Would you like to be a good writer? Do you want to be a good speaker? Would you like to gather analytical skills? And all of those are very useful, so, and that can be not only just in your classes, but in the extra activities that you do. Do you take up a leadership position in your church, or etc.? I mean, like sort of in your small groups and stuff. I think the question is, where can you build on skills, and that may actually lead you into certain job sets where those skills are really important. So I know that's not sort of saying that giving you a tool of like, how do you find that? I mean, I think there are ways of doing that, which is also reading up a lot and asking people about different careers. But maybe another way to think about it is, okay, how about I collect some really useful skills that are needed moving forward. And some of these will always be useful. Speaking is one of them. I think I would encourage people to explore some skills. Yeah.
Would you like to add on, Natalie and Kavya?
I can. Yeah. This question fascinates me because I was surrounded by people who had similar passions. I still am, but I never had one, right? I had many. So what I say is, like, if you don't know what you want to do or be, that's great, because then you can do anything and be everything, right? So that's the way I'm encouraged to look at it. When I was younger, I was worried that, I was not going to, am I the only one who doesn't know, like, that one sharp thing that I want to do? But I kept on with it. I had varied interests. So what I would say is, as you progress, see what interests stay with you, and then explore what all you can do around that interest. So there is this unique word that I heard once, I think in a TED talk or somewhere. It's called multi-potentialite. It may sound big and huge when you hear it, but that's what you could be, right? So just go and figure that out. You can be anything.
So encouraging, so encouraging. Natalie.
Yeah, I think, like, going back to what I was saying earlier in my little speech, I spent 5 years traveling before I decided what degree I wanted to do. I do think it is unfortunate that we still have this sort of very set pattern of academic trajectory, particularly now, because I think, you know, whilst that's fantastic, you do want to go deep into a particular subject matter and you need to really learn it, and obviously you'll learn other skills along the way. It can sort of pigeonhole you into something that you haven't really explored your level of interest in it. So I'm glad. I mean, I know right now we can't travel around like we could, but there are different things that we can do to expose ourselves to get experiences. And like Tara said, I think the skills aspect is really important now. We need to be developing skills that we can use in all sorts of ways and in different experiences. So try to have those experiences where you can learn something. You can learn a tangible skill. And we know that creative thinking, lateral thinking, communication, empathy, all of these things are the top skills now. So anything that can help you develop those will stand you in good stead, whatever career choice you make or whatever job you take, because jobs are not going to be, obviously they're not for life anyway now at all, but you're going to be moving to so many different things. It's going to be more like a project life. Think of your life as a series of projects. And if you've got some good transferable skills that can move whatever you're doing, then you're going to be, you'll be well equipped. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's time to close this wonderful discussion that we have had today. Truly and inspirational and very informative, I felt. So I thank our amazing speakers for sharing their unique STEM journeys. I'm sure these speakers have inspired you all to pursue your career in STEM. I also thank our organizers once again, Keynote Women Speakers, United Women Singapore and Science Center. Last but not the least, thanks to all who attended today and participated today. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to the team of Keynote Women Speakers. I hope everybody was as inspired by our speakers as I was today. Once again, a big thanks to all our speakers and our moderator for making this webinar session possible. Before you leave, please do share your feedback with us via the link shared in the chat or by scanning the QR code. Thank you. We hope to see you again for our PM sessions. Bye-bye.
you.